Hello and welcome to the podcast Sustainable Innovation, a conversation with Max Hemingway. I'm Dr. Padmavati Roy, your host, and in this podcast, we dive deep into the world of green software and technologies. But prior to that, we will be touching upon the Sustainable Development Goals um, from the United Nations Agreement and exploring how we can harness the power of technology to create more sustainable and environmentally friendly future, especially for the IT and the engineering sector. We are all aware that climate change is escalating impact on our world, manifested in rising global temperatures, and we see almost every time there is severe weather patterns across the world, and the ecosystems are speedily shifting, underscores the urgent and pressing need for collective action. These changes challenge biodiversity and human livelihood and demand immediate efforts to mitigate these changes. The call for collective action should make us all feel united and part of a global movement to address this urgent issue. In the middle of this urgency of mitigating climate change, the technology field, mainly through initiatives like green software, offers a beacon of hope. With its focus on energy efficiency and minimal environmental impact, green software acknowledges the sustainable growth in energy consumption attributed to software operations. However, it also presents a significant potential for positive change. As digital infrastructure becomes omnipresent, the energy consumption attributed to software operations has grown sustainably. But so has the potential for positive change. This potential should inspire us all, offering a ray of hope for a more sustainable future for all of us. As significant contributors to global energy demands and greenhouse gas emissions, technology companies bear a crucial responsibility in mitigating climate change. And there are, while I was actually preparing this script, there are around 4 or 5 sustainable development goals that all the IT organizations and technology companies need to focus on that we will discuss in a while. And all these IT organizations can make a significant impact by adopting green software practices such as optimizing code for efficiency, utilizing energy efficient hardware, and adopting cloud solutions that leverage renewable energy sources. This empowerment to make a difference should instill a sense of responsibility and urgency in all of us. These practices reduce the carbon footprints and foster a culture of sustainability within the tech industry, leading to long term operational savings and aligning corporate strategies with global environmental goals. Now, we are all living in an era of digital transformations as we speak, which shapes every aspect of our life and environmental impact on technology we depend on has become increasingly significant. Green software movement emerges as a crucial response to this challenge, emphasizing the need to reduce digital operations, carbon footprint, and promote software development and usage sustainability. We need to understand why it is essential now to grasp the urgency of the situation and the need for immediate action. Urgency of addressing climate change is undeniable as everyone agrees. Global energy demands are increasing and the IT sector power consumption is rising correspondingly, making it a remarkable contributor to global greenhouse gas emissions. This underscores the immediate need for action. Software, which drives these technologies, thus plays a pivotal role in exacerbating or elevating environmental impacts. Transitioning to green software practices is not just a strategic advantage but an ecological necessity in the face of this urgent challenge. It enhances efficiency, reduces cost, and fosters a positive corporate image, underscoring the weight of our responsibility in this crucial transition. With that, I welcome our guest Max Hemingway, a fellow technologist. Together, we will explore the depths of green software and why it is important in this era of digital transformations, which are coupled with artificial intelligence and machine learning. Before we kick off the discussion, Max, thanks a lot for accepting my invitation to be my guest on this podcast today.
Thank you for
And
having me.
can you share about yourself and your thoughts on the evolution of green software in today's technology world and how it is contributing to the sustainable development goals?
Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, I'm a technologist. I've got over 30 odd years in IT, which has seen a lot of change in computing and in business over the many years. Green software has really become a focal point in today's world, especially with all of the climate change agendas and solutions that we need to find. And I think businesses and providers are starting to find they need to do more around sustainability and around solutions that help to reduce our impact on the environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, when I was actually going through the Sustainable Development Goals of United Nations, these goals and the agenda of the UN agenda for the future we want by 2030 uh, from the Department of Economics and Social Development, as we know, they have identified 17 SDGs or Sustainable Development Goals and 169 action areas. So these SDGs, they touch upon all the ecosystems, starting from the poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, industry innovations and infrastructure, reduced inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, also the responsible consumption and production, climate action, life below water, life on land, peace, justice, and strong institutions, and finally, partnership for the goals. So, among these 17 SDGs, I have I strongly believe, or I have identified 4 or 5 goals. Uh, we need to focus. I mean, all the IT organizations and like gender equality, decent work and economic growth, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production. So, what are your thoughts on this, Max?
Yeah,
So,
so
how?
the 17 goals are something that larger corporations certainly report on in their annual reports at the moment, which is great to see. It's not possible for all businesses to do that when they're small, starting out, or some of the mediums. And I think working towards these is a really good way of proving where you are. But there's 17 measures that have been around for a while, and we need to do more.
Mhm.
And when you look at the market today and the organizations, so there's a lot of sustainability principles and guidelines out there from everybody from providers like the Microsoft, the Google, the Amazons of this world, other vendors are available, to organisations like the Green Software Foundation that start to bring in 10 recommendations. So there's kind of a balance between all of the reporting that's needed to show your green credentials and that your business is working towards the sustainability goals of the UN, etc. But also, deciding which of these are the key priorities for your business and heading towards. Because if you look at it from a business point of view, they're always considering, how do we make money? How do we keep people employed? How do we grow and support our customers? And a lot of these things are not always on the foremind. But businesses are now starting to change and see that these are things that need to be identified. So looking at the supply chain to what their suppliers are doing is one of the ways. So more businesses are asking suppliers now, how do you deal with these issues? How are you sustainable? And it's passing down the chain, and that's creating momentum that eventually will help the consumer of whichever goods or services that they're procuring. And it helps with knowing, we won't get full end-to-end traceability tomorrow, but in the future we will get that. So if you go and buy a laptop from a manufacturer, there's a lot have gone into that as to how recyclable it is, how green it is, the processes that have gone into creating those things today. So the sort of the hardware side of things is kind of getting there. It's been thought about. It's how we then create the applications and software that sits on those things, that drives them, that consumes the power, that can make changes. I think that's the kind of important bit. But when you peel these back, we'll just park the 17 for the moment because they're sort of set in stone in a way. It's what principles and guidelines you want to choose as a business and who's you're going to accept. Green coding isn't something that's new. It's been around for, since the time of coding started, as to what's the most energy efficient programming language that's out there today. And there are some reports that suggest that C is the best and Perl is the least energy efficient. But a lot of that changes against what people have skills in, and where they lie and what the demand is, and how these programs are actually written. Well, the ability to code efficiently has always been one of the principles of coding, and to make sure that you streamline what you're doing and it's understood how it's efficient and works through. The other challenge today, though, with a lot of these things is the security side of things, because we need additional security alongside code to help protect it, and that becomes a little bit more adding additional things in and layers that drive higher code bases. And I think some of this. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Please go ahead, Max.
Yeah, I think some of this is, when you peel back and you look at coding and some of the, let's say, the green software principles, very much, you can take a code today that used to take a server to run. You can now run it in serverless. So you're only using the resources that you need to run that piece of code when it needs to be run. And that certainly becomes more more efficient in the way that things operate, and you're able to run multiple code stacks on a single piece of hardware. And that's where the sort of the cloud vendors are helping out with the move to drive that. But then you look at things like AI, which is a great advancement. Again, it's not new; it's been around before. But it's come to the forefront again with the introduction of the LLMs and ChatGPT, etc. That's driving higher compute usage now and demand, because everybody wants to create AI engines and use AI engines to help them develop going forward. And AI is certainly helping in coding. There's some reports saying, will there be programmers around in the future? Well, there's going to be programmers around programming AI, but it's easier for people to ask AI now to create an application to do something. There is a kind of, you need to check where it's got its code base from and what it's using and copyrights and things like that, because that's always been a bit of an issue. But the output is certainly driving better ways of doing things. And it's a great way of saying, if I don't know how to refactor this code to be more efficient, I'll ask AI to help me and make some suggestions. So it's getting computers to help us become more efficient on these.
So do you think using AI, using any of these chat GPT or any other models for coding by the software organizations is a good way to contribute back to the sustainable way of working?
It's one of the things.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's others. Creating your code is one aspect of it. Like finding a place to run it, finding how you want to serve it, securing that code are all the other areas you need to think about and make sure that it's working. I think the keys is on education and for people to understand. So if we look at the 10 principles in the Green Software Foundation, they're talking about focus on control, reduce data usage, remove or refactor unused features, detect and remove loops which can't achieve purpose, adapt your app's behavior according to power modes, limit the way it computes accuracy, real-time monitoring. Is choice of programming language can influence your energy consumption. About doing more green development, and then reviewing what's happening in things such as dynamic code analysis. And that's formed a reasonable set of principles that people can, or sort of recommendations that people can look at and say, yeah, I'm gonna follow those.
Yes. When you touch upon these principles, I just want to ask you, considering these principles of green software, how the software developers can design the systems which are building for longevity, and how can the developers design these robust, adaptable, and easily updated systems? And what impact does this approach have on reducing the environmental consequences, like frequent software updates and hardware replacements, so on and so forth?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because people's hardware tends to change quickly. So if we take the instance of a mobile phone, mobile phones change very, very quickly, and people update hardware to the latest and greatest. Do you want the latest iPhone, the latest Android, or which manufacturer you go for? Or are you happy sitting on the model you've got for a good couple of years? So behaviors can change that drive the need for changes in code, because you've got to update and go to the latest. There can be operating system updates, there's security updates, there's a whole raft of things that change the way that we can write and refactor code to be efficient on the latest and greatest. The biggest thing is the security threats, and making sure that your system is secure, it has the right controls and protection in place. And some of that's using other systems, some of that's within itself. That can be quite a job to make sure that's up to date with the latest threats that are out there.
Yeah.
So it depends really. It's is it a simple application, or is it a full-blown SaaS system that you're producing? I think the key here is in the education.
Yeah.
And understanding, what principles your company, or if you're doing it solo, what are your principles that you're sticking to, that you're going to use when you're doing these things, and then into where you're going to host it, how often that platform changes, how often it's updated, to keep a reasonable refresh cycle on your code.
Absolutely. So let us now talk about some of these practical applications and what does building carbon efficient software entails. And can you share some impactful examples from your own personal experience?
I can sort of genericize a few. So, I think we can certainly see changes in older systems, removing things like technical debt. There's certainly a shift from the traditional mainframe systems, although some of those are still there because they do some good jobs, into more simplified cloud-based platforms, and refactoring code to move those, or actually looking at, do you just change your product, change the platform that it's on, but take your data and change your data so that it's in something new. And I think that's sort of one of the big areas that people are moving to these days, to get rid of that technical debt. It's old, it's systems that drive money because they cost money rather than drive money, because they've been there for ages, they've not moved. It takes a lot to keep them secure and up and running, and it might be skills that people no longer have. It might be an older language that isn't as popular today as previous. And that,
it's very difficult to get these days mainframe developers as well, right? You are right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in these circumstances, now we are talking about sustainable innovation and software engineering and all those things. How does the role of a sustainable software engineer extend across different engineering disciplines, from designing silicon to user experience?
Well, some different roles there. I think we're starting to see companies employ CSOs, so chief sustainability officers, and they're driving the direction for the company in where they want to head. So in sort of the cases of large companies, what is it your company's direction is, and where you're heading on these things. For the smaller companies and solos, etc., it's how are you going to address these challenges? Being able to produce products that say they're sustainable and minimal code, etc., does have an advantage when it comes to sales, because companies are now looking at those things down their supply chains to say, I need to be more sustainable. The way I get sustainable is through my supply chain, because the products I use and purchase need to be sustainable. So how are you helping me get there?
Yeah.
There's a lot out there. As the old phrase says, software's eating the world. Software's kind of at the world. We've created lots of it out there. Look how many apps are on your mobile phone. How many of those do you still use? How many of those are
Yeah.
just sat there? You've used it a couple of times and thought, yeah, that's okay, don't need that anymore, and moved on. And I think that's the key here, that it is that let's move on, let's look at
Mm.
what we actually need to do the business of today, help drive down that technical debt, which helps the sustainable agenda moving forward. But likewise, if it's been sat on a piece of tin that's 10 years old, there's a kind of question that says, that piece of tin, has that actually gone through its sustainable life cycle?
Mm.
And is it now, I wouldn't say carbon neutral, because it's still consuming power, etc., but has the cost of it come down significantly, that if I buy a new piece of kit, does that increase because it's new and it's been produced, it's got new carbon footprint, etc. So there's a kind of balance, I think, across
This
those
ba
things.
this balance is very much required. And also, when you are mentioning about chief sustainability officer, all the while we had roles like chief technology officer or chief information officer, so on and so forth. So this CSO or this chief sustainable officer role is new addition to the IT industry, or it has been there since a long time?
I think it's been there a while. It's not sort of new, but I think companies are moving more to having that role, because they need the focus. They need somebody to help drive that that thought leadership
Yeah.
across their business.
Yeah, it's very essential who can actually identify what principles are SDGs an organization need to have, and how they want to implement these and oversee everything. So yeah, this is very interesting actually to have. So I feel everyone has a part to play in addressing the climate solutions, and also we have started the discussion with these 17 SDGs. So you know the depth of how much and how many resources, whether human, non-human, everyone are involved in the sustainable innovations. So do you see new skills being added to our IT organizations in addition to the developer or architect role? If yes, what are those skills do you see? And you also touched upon some training is required, some education is required. Do you see this is an urgent need to add these new knowledge, new training need to be delivered to the employees?
Yeah. So there's the great thing about the internet today is that it's full of wonderful stuff. It's full of some bad
Yeah,
stuff as well, but it's full of wonderful stuff that will help.
yeah.
So there's lots of courses that are available. There's some free stuff. So nipping back to the Green Software Foundation, they do which is run by the Linux Foundation.
Yeah.
They do a Green Software Foundation course and digital badge that you can do. And I would say that would be one of the first things I would suggest people go and take. it takes you into some basics on green software. It takes you into some stuff on cloud computing and how you can bring those together. The kind of things you need to think about when you're working with it. I think everybody, like I say, everybody has a part to play, even if it's just turning the lights off in the office on the way out. Making sure you don't leave them on overnight. Everybody has a part to play in all of this. Even if you're not a developer, or you're just interested, understanding and being able to read code is a great skill.
Yeah.
You don't have to know how to program it, but if you can read the code, you can certainly understand how it's operating. And once you get to know the sort of syntax it's in, then it becomes like reading a book, effectively, or a short essay, or however the code is. But that kind of helps you understand the kind of things it's trying to achieve and where it's going to. So, so that's important. I think employees, they need to understand. A great way is read the company report if your company does one. See where it is on its 17 United Nations principles, on its reporting of those, and see where else it's heading, with its green agendas. If you're not aware, or see if you've got a CSO and ask them what the strategy is around those things. So employee knowledge and understanding of these things is very important. That then helps itself, because people understand and can start to move in and work in ways that help drive those agendas. It's, in the big scheme of things, in the big wide world, it's a small part.
Yeah.
But it's a part that can make a difference.
Yes.
I think that's important. How important is refactoring my 10 lines of code, and what's that going to do to the whole environment? Probably not much, but if everybody did that would have a bigger impact.
Yeah, that's what everybody has a part to play in this green innovation or sustainable innovation. You are absolutely right, and that's absolutely wonderful. So, given the projections by Bloomberg Intelligence that ESGs, are environmental, social, and governance assets, may reach $53 billion by 2025, that is next year. So, which is representing a third of global assets under management, or AUM. What implications does this significant shift towards sustainability hold for the IT organizations regarding investment strategies and operational adaptations?
So I think there's certainly some shifts in everything to cloud at the moment. People are looking at it. Is cloud right? I think is sort of best way to say that. Is it the right place? Is it the first place we should go? Against the systems and the size and the data and everything else that they're kind of running, but that sort of certainly fills part of people's strategies, and the ability to access more capabilities and functionality within systems, moving to those kind of systems. But I think there needs to be investment. Education's got to be key, because you need to tell people where they're heading and where we're going. ESG reporting it's a big job.
Yes.
For companies to do. It's not an easy task. It's getting better, because there are organizations out there that are creating capabilities to help drive, sometimes using AI to help with the reporting, and seeing what the the actual outputs of companies are, inputs and outputs. There is more focus on, reporting correctly rather than, there's sort of the term says greenwashing.
Yeah.
Which is, we're just going to basically say that we're doing stuff and we're not doing it.
Yeah.
But I think there'll be more focus around ESG reporting and being able to prove the end to end on what you're saying. We're not quite there yet, but there were certainly discussions around bringing new guidelines in on reporting, and almost like having it like like you do your financial reporting in your company reports at the end of the year. You'd have to do a similar thing and have your green credentials externally ratified, audited. We may get there in the future, that becomes a liability on companies to have that done. So you have your financial report auditing and you have your sustainability reporting.
Yeah, so when you mentioned greenwashing, actually, I wanted to. Greenwashing may sound funny, but it is not. So, why do you think it's very crucial when you touched upon the reporting, measuring and reporting these carbon emissions is crucial for maintaining the transparency and how do you think, like, what should be the frequency all the IT organizations need to approach this task of reporting without actually greenwashing?
Yeah, so, well, sort of greenwashing is that providing a false impression and misleading against what you're actually doing.
Yeah.
And I think for IT, they're going to be called upon a lot more, which is how can you help us drive the reporting and metrics around what we do? It's all around the data. It's around pulling out, creating that data and getting that and reporting on it, the analytics of it all to provide the right reports out to the market and customers et al. How do you do that? I think that's going to be one of the big drivers. The other one's going to be how much power are we using? How much CO2 are we producing through our IT systems? And IT will always be under pressure to help reduce that and put the systems in the right place that helps drive that. That's where things like cloud have come in. But as we sort of said before, it's kind of going the other way a little bit now because of AI and the sudden burst in demand that's driving more power, more cooling, more emissions through our appetite to use AI wherever we can. And I think it's about making decisions that are the right decisions for your business, for yourselves, that drive, is this the right thing to do? Does this help us meet our business goals and outcomes that we're trying to achieve? But does it also show that we're on the right path to having a sustainable future?
Yeah. So yeah, that's absolutely I think the way. And also I'm curious to understand how emerging technologies like artificial intelligence or IoT and cloud computing shaping sustainability efforts in the technology sector. Can you expand on these areas?
Um, yeah, so I think, well, we're driving very hard on innovation
Yeah.
in these areas and doing things more efficiently. If you look at autonomous vehicles, for instance, Huge amount of work going on today around electric cars. I read a report this morning that actually talked about, consider electric cars to be like a mobile phone platform. They're forever being changed and upgraded and developed. Our mobiles have got to a stage now where we've got a reasonable form factor. It's the cameras, it's the chips, it's the screen that's being developed. How do we move forward and make these things bendable, which is what they're doing with graphene and some rather interesting foldable phones. When are we going to get to holograms? That'll be interesting. But the kind of, bring it back to the car, that's changing.
Yeah.
It's electric cars, the capabilities of the cars. They were talking about cars without brake pedals. Every time you put your foot on the brake pedal, you're actually releasing dust from the brakes into the atmosphere.
Yes.
But if your car is being controlled by a computer and it's using engine braking and controlling speed and distance between vehicles, that all helps. And these kind of changes are, it's kind of that example, driving the way that we do things and the way that we consume and the way that we innovate. And it's an interesting platform that's seeing lots and lots of investment and development today, but it needs a lot of supporting infrastructure. So for the IoT, sensors in the road, sensors on lampposts, being able to tell the cars where it is or anything going forward, communications networks. There's huge amounts of change and investment there. We do need to think, as we move forward, what do we leave behind? What's our technical debt in terms of all that kit that we've just left? How do we best do that? It's great to see the Royal Mint now taking, in the UK, the Royal Mint is the place that prints money for the UK. They're now actually investing in recycling electronics. And pulling off some of the materials in the circuit boards, not only for the gold content, but there's also other bits in there, and how we start to recycle some of the batteries and cars. Cars have got huge batteries in them. How do we recycle those? How do we stop wasting these minerals that we need for these devices? So there's lots of things to think about. It can spiral to a very big topic very, very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you mentioned about these EVs or electric vehicles, for example, when we were touching again and again on everyone has a role to play in this. So electric cars, when an organization is sponsoring cars or giving cars to their employees, I know some of the organizations, they only provide the support for their employees in the way of only they give electric cars or electric vehicles. They do not sponsor any petrol vehicles these days. There are so many organizations which while reading researching for this topic, I came to know. So I think every organization need to follow the same thing. The organization provided vehicles should be electric vehicles, and also when we are seeing more electric vehicles, sometime and down the lane need to think about how do you recycle these car batteries. That's a valid point you mentioned, Max. Yeah.
Yeah, we've also got to look at, there's a lot of technology, there's a lot of reliance on things. So certainly when I first started driving, I could go and fix my car with a spanner or a hammer. Nowadays, it's I need to take it to a garage with a computer, and I can't really lift the cover off the top of the engine without voiding some warranty or something anywhere. But everything's computer controlled, and it's changed massively. Our reliance on technology is huge. And with that comes the responsibility that we need to think about as to the impacts. How do we go forward? How do we make this stuff more sustainable?
Yeah,
But it's great,
absolutely.
the innovation that's coming out of this thing, out of these is absolutely fantastic.
Yes, we have come a long way into this innovation. There are so many countries which are already into uh, in these ESG reporting. They are forward, we know. So, what major hurdles do IT organizations typically face in this journey of sustainability, and what strategies might help them navigate these challenges?
Um, so I think for IT organizations, understanding the customers, understanding where their businesses are going, what the impact of the changes that are coming down the line. There are more conversations happening and more legislation coming in the future that will change the way we do things. We need to be adaptive and reactive to this stuff. We need to be sort of ahead of the game. How we can use IT to support and report what we're doing, but also can it help reduce our sustainable goals and bring them in line. Education's the big thing. And gone, if there's one key takeaway for me out of this is go and do that course. Take you a couple of hours, and you get a digital badge at the end.
Yeah.
And you'll learn a lot. If you may already know it, great. But if you don't, you will pick up a lot and learn a lot. And that takes you through as well. It'll take you through somehow how the these ESGs are calculated and the impacts and things. And it's important to know. I think the more people that know about this stuff, the easier it will become, and setting directions and helping companies achieve what they need to achieve will be easier.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how significant is the role of the corporate culture um, in the IT organizations to drive the sustainability? And what should leaders be doing to foster this shift? All these things are top down in an organization, so leaders need to bring all the sustainability into their organizational strategy for sure.
Yeah, again, it sort of goes back to some of my first comments around what's the business goals, what are they trying to achieve. A lot of businesses are there to make money. They're there to keep people employed. They're there to produce products and serve customers. If it's something that's not making money, is it something a business is going to do? That's an open question. If it's what a business should be doing, I think is a different question. But the pressure in the market today around being able to prove your credentials around your product, around its traceability, its sustainability, I think is driving a different mindset, and that will help drive top-down conversations. The CSO position will help drive those top-down conversations and direction setting and push for businesses to be able to prove the sustainable credentials at the end of the day. And there's a lot of passionate people out there, huge amount of passionate people out there who this is, on top of their agenda and help drive these conversations and movements forward. And that's really important. That's where things like Green Software Foundation, Sustainability Org have all come from. It's from passionate people that are driving these things and helping other companies by creating these principles and recommendations and training that help drive it. And it's there to be consumed. So I think go and find it.
Yeah. So on the Wadley mapping perspective, if we put the sustainability or ESG efforts on the Wadley mapping, where today's IT organizations are standing today, they are still at the left side of the value stream or somewhere in the middle.
I think it varies business to business. There are some on the left, there are some on the right. There are some that are doing this absolutely fantastically, and there are some that are just starting out. What's important, I think, is what they can use. So, I would class them as the kind of user, the top level on the map. I would put in on the left-hand side the new legislation that will be dreamt up and coming. On the right-hand side, I would certainly put, in the consumables, the 17 principles from the United Nations. In the kind of product area, the recommendations and principles from many different organizations out there, and software providers, etc., that have been created. The sort of innovative, up and coming kind of areas, I would say, that's a little bit of a mix of all things, because there's new stuff coming out.
Yeah.
That's been driven.
Yes, and fairly for the already the large IT organizations, it may be difficult to implement the sustainable measures, but for all the startups, I think it will be fairly easy because they are just starting. They can integrate the sustainable principles right from the beginning. So I think that. Yeah.
Yes and no. I would say, some startups, that's not the first thing they're thinking about. They're thinking about how can we make the product, how can we make the business. It's easier as a startup, but it's easier as a startup in a lot of things to use the cloud, to consume the latest technologies. But for existing businesses that have legacy, etc., how do you eat the elephant? One chunk at a time.
Yeah.
And that's what you've got to do. You've got to take it, and that's where breaking things down into those 17 UN ESG goals helps. It's starting to build and break those areas down.
Absolutely. So, what are your predictions for the next significant steps in the sustainability for the IT organizations, and how do you envision the industry evolving to meet these future challenges, some of the challenges that we have identified before?
That's a great question. I, in my opinion, would say that reporting is going to be a big thing. Measurement and reporting.
Okay.
And the accuracy of reporting.
Yeah.
So the ability to use technologies out there today, observability, all that kind of stuff, with AI as well, to help get the information, analyze the information, to make informed decision outputs, to allow businesses to look at the right areas to invest and to concentrate on, to help drive the sustainability agenda. is growing. I think that's going to be the sort of biggest areas. I think in the future we'll see more legislation and requests coming out from governments and from regulators that drive reporting to be, solid and auditable in the future.
So currently, I think I don't think there are legislations that IT organizations are bound to provide some of these report or outcomes to the government at the moment. But in future, these are the things that may become a new normal, right?
Yeah. So the 17 are the ones that companies have to report on within the big organizations of certain sizes and things have to report on. I would say, more and more will come up. Some of it will be region, country specific. Others will be global.
Yeah. So we have touched upon in this discussion just before we were talking on the startups. Startups focus will be mostly on getting the product out. But what guidance would you offer for smaller IT organizations or even startups which are eager to be sustainable from the beginning but concerned about the resources? What is your advice for them?
I would suggest, making sure that's part of your outcomes you're trying to achieve at the start. So when you're starting out and this is what we want to achieve by this product, we want to sell X number, we want to do this, but I think it's important to say, and we want to prove sustainability throughout the life cycle, and that will drive the right behaviors.
Yes.
And reporting. Start your reporting early. Work on what's in your supply chain that's sustainable today. Ask some questions of your providers. How can you help me be more sustainable with this? And that will take you forward.
That's wonderful. So, could you share a personal story or a project related to IT and sustainability that left a significant mark on your professional journey, if at all you have?
Well, I think I've done over 30 plus years in business. I've done a lot of projects.
I understand.
A lot of them have been upgrades and moved to new systems and drive for better solutions. I think it's a hard one to answer because there's been a load. There's always lessons that you can learn from doing these projects. I think the biggest thing today, though, is that this is more visible than previously.
That's right. We are talking more about green software and the sustainability and all those things because of these changes that are happening, and there is an urgent need for world to adopt to these practices. I think by 2030. So we are talking more now. So we have touched upon the resources you were mentioning, the Green Software Certification Foundation course from the Green Software Foundation, which is Linux certification. So for people just they are starting to understand, and what other courses or certifications do you recommend apart from the Linux course?
Oh well, there's lots of reading material out there. As I sort of said, this isn't sort of the first thing, the first time this has been discussed and looked at. Power consumptions of programming languages has been around for a long time, since programming languages started, really. There are some great books out there, like Code Complete, which takes you gives you good guidance and things. I think the principles and way that we do things have changed over the years and driving better results. We've learned from lessons, but I would say go and do some research, go and read, go and look at the best. Go and look at the UN 17 principles. Go and look at what other companies are doing. See how companies report on these things. See what their agendas are. Look in your supply chain, and these will all give great pointers. There's a plethora of courses out there. Some of them free, some of them paid for. There's lots to find, but you can. It's a rabbit hole you can go down if you're not careful.
Yeah. So how crucial is see, let's say we have a team and we have in our organization, any organization, people are getting to getting these certifications and all. But do you think it's one time learn and just forget, or how crucial is continuous learning in staying relevant in the rapidly evolving field of IT sustainability? And also, could you suggest practical ways that IT professionals or technologists can integrate their new knowledge about sustainability into their current role?
So you should always be continually learning. You should never stand still.
Yeah.
Because if you stand still, you'll be overtaken by the train with everybody else on it.
Yeah.
I would say reinforce your learning. Learn something, go and tell somebody else about it. That not only proves that you've learned it and you know it, but you're also helping to inform somebody. Hey, I found this great course over here. It's taught me this, this, and this. I think you should go and do it. As an example. But create a development plan, create your continuous learning plan, so that you can drive yourself forward on these things.
Yeah. Yeah, you actually echoed my mind and my thought process. If you stop learning, for me, it is like the day I think the day I stop learning, I feel I am no longer alive. So you rightly mentioned that the train left the station with everyone, learned people left, and we are there. That's very nice way of putting the things. And how can having team members certified in sustainable practices impact an organization's operations and its public image? And do certifications in sustainable practices help the organizations meet legal and regulatory requirements for sustainability? And do you think can they provide a competitive edge over other organizations?
There's a lot to unpack there, but I think certifications show a level of knowledge. It's how you use that knowledge and what you do with that knowledge. So you can go and learn, take a course, go and get a certificate. Great. But how have you used it? What have you done with it? How have you exploited that? Having a level of employees certified is a great thing. But being able to prove what you've done with that certification, I think, is key as well. How that helps impact what you're doing, your business, your products, and your customers. So we've had, as an example, 10 people certified. These 10 people have gone on to do this, which has driven down X and provided cost savings of Y. That has a more powerful message than we've got 10 people certified.
We need to show the outcomes of certified employees having in our organization. Yeah, that's
Yes.
a really wonderful thought. So, Max, That brings us to the end of this podcast, and
Okay.
I can't thank you enough. And thanks a lot for your valuable insights. As we close today's discussion, I want to thank our guest Max Hemingway for joining us and sharing his invaluable insights into sustainable software engineering and IT practices. Max, your expertise and dedication to fostering sustainability in technology are truly inspiring, and you have stressed upon the importance of learning, having certification, not only that, generating these outcomes out of certification. How are you implementing the knowledge in the organizational's sustainable behavior? Thanks a lot for taking the time to enlighten us and our listeners about the critical role IT plays in achieving a more sustainable future. In the episode description, we have provided links to resources and further reading for our listeners who want to learn more or seek support. If you enjoyed today's discussion, please subscribe to our podcast, share it with your friends and family, and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us bring more informative and engaging content to you. Thank you to our esteemed guest, Max Hemingway, for joining us today and sharing this expertise. We hope you found this episode enlightening and helpful. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Max. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Yeah.